All right, it works. And we've also confirmed that using Tibetan chanting is a acceptable way of testing the microphone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to another stream. We're going to be doing a little bit of coding and chill. So I saw this yesterday. A bunch of people were talking about some new capability with the OpenAI API. So I was like, what better to do in our coding and chill session than test this out? Function calling and other API updates. So this is yesterday. OpenAI, they released GPT 3.5 and Turbo M4, which are the two models that we've been using in our little project. But now they have this function calling capability, which actually sounds extremely similar to kind of what we did. This kind of weird tool former kind of behavior that we were working on for this project, where you basically have a list of functions, aka we were calling them behaviors, and the behaviors have a description, and then basically you choose a behavior from the list below, do not explain, return the name of the behavior only. It basically looks like that's now built in to the GPT API. So I'm curious to see how they did it and exactly what how does this work? Developers can now describe functions and have the model intelligently choose to output a JSON object containing arguments. So this is something that we don't have, right? We don't have the ability to pass arguments. The way that we kind of formulated this, we basically just have it call or choose a function from a list of functions, but it sounds like you can now actually have quarks and args. So these models have been fine-tuned to detect when a function needs to be called and respond with a JSON that adheres to the function's signature. Get started with our developer documents. All right, so let's click on that. Function calling. In an API call, you can describe functions to GPT 0.6 and have a model intelligence. So is there an example of me doing this? Oh my god, the example looks absolutely disgusting. Look at this nested. Okay, so OpenAI and JSON. First of all, let's copy this and let's pick. Oh, accidentally click the Docker button. That's not what we wanted. Let's do Control-Shift-E to open up our side here. We'll hit New File, and let's make a little file here. We're going to call it functions.py. Let's paste in the code from the example, and we're also going to need, let's copy paste a function that we have up here for setting the OpenAI key, this one here. Okay, so the code for setting the OpenAI key looks like we need keysdir os and log, so let's go ahead and copy that as well. Why don't we just copy this up here? Router, put that there. We still need OS, import OS, and we need the logger, so let's go ahead and import the logger as well. Like this. Do we want all this crap here? Yeah, that's fine. Let's just copy all of this. I'm okay with that. Actually, you know what? I'm not okay with that. Let's just delete this, and not have to do any of this logging stuff. Okay. All right, so example dummy function hard-coded to return the same weather. In production, this could be your backend API or an external API. So this is the actual function that you want. Run conversation. OpenAI chat completion create. Role, user, content. What's the weather like in Boston? This is still the same kind of format. And now basically you can pass this functions quarg. Is that the same OpenAI call that we're using here? So if we go to GPT text, OpenAI chat completion dot create. Yeah, it's the same one. It's basically now it has that functions call. Okay. You need the name and description, and then you need these parameters. So we were actually quite close with our behavior. Our behavior has similar kind of properties. Our behavior has name, and then has a handle to the actual callable, and then it has the description. So it seems like we're probably still gonna if message.get function call function name. Yeah, so here you would need some kind of dictionary which holds the function handles, right? Because here they just kind of magically put the get current weather. Okay, so this is also not super clean. Let's do the if name equals main. This little piece of code here that you often see in Python scripts, basically what it does is it only runs this code if you run this file. So if I import this file, right, let's say if I had it like this, if I imported this file in a different file, it would run this code, right? So I don't want that to happen. If I import this file, I just want to import these functions maybe, or maybe some of these globally scoped variables here, but I don't want to run this type of code, right? So like if you have any kind of script-like code in your Python file, you kind of want to put it behind this. And one pattern that I've actually seen people do now is they write like test functions here like this, and then they'll put them here like this. So that's a pattern that I'm seeing emerging, which is actually, I kind of like it. You know, it's not necessarily kosher. Like people will argue that that's a terrible way to have tests, but you want your tests separate in a separate module and so on. But I kind of like that pattern. Okay. So we're going to have to set the OpenAI key as well. We can just call our little function there. And let's see this. Let's run it. Control-Shift-1, debug the Python file. And there we go. What did it do? It print run conversation, return second response. So what we're printing is the second response. Let's do Control tilde to get rid of this bottom part here. Why don't we put a little breakpoint right here, actually. Run it again. All right. So now we're here. What did the message, the response? Function call. So what happens if the function call is not there? Let's change this message here. Let's change it to something that isn't. What is your favorite color? All right, so that's very clearly not the get current weather description. So let's see if we run that. What do we end up getting? Okay, let's go into here, the debug console. We're going to ask message or response choices 0 message. I don't have a personal preference. Message dot get function call. It needs to be this. Yeah, so this is none, right? So when you try to get this, this is basically, uh, you're trying to find a key in this dictionary here called function call. And what really this does is this is more so this, right? I kind of prefer this because it lets you know explicitly that, hey, if it doesn't get this key, it's going to return none. If it doesn't get none, then this statement evaluates as false, and then this entire section here is skipped. So you don't have to include this none. The none is there by default, but I generally kind of prefer that just because it's cleaner. Okay. So this seems pretty standard. Let's maybe integrate it into our little Python file. Let's do Control B to get rid of the side. Tanvir Khan. Hey Hugo, I don't want to interrupt or anything. I want to get into the alignment research space. Just wondering what you would be a good direction for that at this point in time. So I think it depends on what you mean by alignment research. I think that there's alignment research that looks more like kind of like almost like a political job, you know, where basically you're sitting in these kind of organization of humans and you're trying to like get attention from different regulatory agencies and you're trying to like get laws and stuff like that. You're almost like kind of a lobbyist almost, if you want to think of it. That's like kind of one side of alignment research. A different side of alignment research is the kind of more technical side of it, which is given this particular set of question and answer pairs, how do I fine tune a pre-trained kind of raw model to align with this specific set of things? Yeah, so I think the problem is that getting involved on kind of the policy legal side of alignment research is difficult, right? It's just a matter of kind of networking and having the right credentials and then being able to convince people that you're the person to do this. And I honestly have no idea how to do that. You know, I imagine it's about probably going on LinkedIn and like spamming people and trying to find people that could help you get into that inner circle. Yeah, unfortunately, anything that kind of involves politics and legal and policy decisions, it's a very crowded kind of space, and it's comes down to your ability to kind of navigate in a human hierarchy. So I'm not going to be able to give you good advice on that, unfortunately. I mean, the technical parts are more interesting. At that point, I would say you just want to get familiar with fine-tuning, the different types of fine-tuning. Like Lima, maybe? What's Lima? Did I read this paper? Lima, deep learning? Oh, less is more for alignment. I think I might have read this. I don't even remember anymore. My memory is so bad. Yeah, I kind of feel like I vaguely remember reading this. Yeah. Yeah, basically that. Just become familiar with the different ways of fine-tuning the the different ways of fine-tuning and kind of the advantages, disadvantages. Know all of those. Try to do some of those in your house, you know, try to fine-tune different models and then get good at that, you know. Make some GitHub projects, make some blogs, and then you'll get attention. You know, and then you can maybe get into one of the big companies. All right, so what we need to add into our behavior data class here is parameters, right? So we need to basically add a field here called parameters. This is going to be a dict of strings and any, right? Type, properties, required. This is really gross. So we can have a default here. So one thing you can do is you could provide a default for these data classes like this. So here it's trying to tell us to provide a default factory. A factory is basically like a function or a callable that you call that creates an object of a certain type, but that's not really what I want. I want a generic thing, so kind of like this. So open bracket, put that in there. Type object, properties, location. Let's go like this and shift tab so it's nicely indented like that. Unit. These are so gross. Like when I was working at Weights and Biases, I had to make a bunch of changes to the hyperparameter sweeping API, and like it had a similar problem where basically you need to define a bunch of parameters, but you need to basically define things like what is the type of this, what are different potential values, what are required, not required, and like these kind of like dictionary JSON-like definitions of objects and properties and all the different like constraints that you have on these different properties is just, I've always found this to be extremely gross, you know. And to me, I actually think that like LLMs are a solution to this, is that you don't actually need to be explicit about all these things, but here we are, you know. Okay. So we're going to be using this same model here, GPT 3.5 Turbo 613. That's the model we're going to use for here. So we no longer need this choose a behavior from the list below. We no longer need this either. All right, let's get rid of this. Return the name of the behavior only. We don't need any of that. We don't need any of this. Now we basically just do this. We give it the text. We got to make sure to use this model. And we don't need the system, but what we do need is we need to pass in a function. Or functions, right? Let's make a self.behaviors here. So self.behaviors, which we're going to put up here, we're going to make a new variable here. Behaviors needs to be here we have it as a dictionary, which maps a key to a specific behavior, but we want this as a list, right? So actually we're going to have two of these. We're going to call it, this is going to be a list of dictionaries. Just kind of very gross, to be honest, but that's just the way it's going to work, I guess. We can say self.functions.append, and we're going to append a dictionary here that has this action.name, description, action.description, and then parameters. Action.parameters, like this. And that's what we're going to pass in over here into our GPT text. We need to go up to this GPT text function. We now need to accept a functions. There should be none here. Should be the default for this. Then we're going to take this functions here. We're going to pass it much like they do here, like this. Right? They pass it functions, and then they say function call auto. What does this function call auto do? Do they tell us more about that? Function calling. Learn how to use. Okay, if you want the model to generate a user-facing message, you can do so by setting the function call none. If no functions are provided, no functions will be called. So I guess function call auto basically automatically determines whether it's a function call. It's kind of weird. All right, let's put that in there. Let's put it in there. Function call equals auto. And then here, normally we were returning the content of the message, but we're going to have to be more clever here. We're going to have some conditional logic here, because now we're going to have to look at whether the function call in the message is there. So let's actually copy this kind of logic they have here. Let's put it here. All right, so it makes this message object, checks if the model wants to call a function. If that's not the case, then just return the content of the message. Let's also add log statements here. So let's say log.info, and we'll say no function call detected. And then here we'll have a log.info function call detected. All right, then we need the function name. Actually, we can put that here, and then we can put a little f string here in our call so that it looks nice and clean. See, and these are the little like tricks that I feel like have changed the way that I code using GitHub Copilot. So if you just notice what I did there, right? So I had this string like that, right? So rather than have an open bracket, right? What I did is I basically like go like this, and then I have to type in function name. What I did is I deleted that open bracket, let it autocomplete in tab complete. So it's like the order of operations in terms of like the fastest way to do things in terms of like number of keystrokes. The fact that Copilot is very good at auto-completing, especially for something like this where you're very clearly going to give it the name of that, it kind of changes a lot of things. So, I don't know, just a little tip there. Hello, Mateos Sousa. How's it going? Okay, so, all right, we're looking at the example here from the OpenAI team, and you see here how they just kind of like magically know what the name of the function is, so they don't even use this. So we need to pass our behavior dictionary so that it can get this function name here. So that's kind of annoying, unfortunately. How do we want to do this? So we could make a different GPT text function. I don't like the idea, because this would also be a GPT text function for us, so I don't like the idea of like kind of nesting GPT calls inside this. So I think as soon as we get the function call detected, maybe we just return that, return function name. Okay. So that means that whenever we're down here, and we have our list of functions, we sent those in. If it sees, behavior guess. So it's actually very similar to this. But now it's not necessarily a behavior guess, right? Now it just be a GPT message. So we need to say, okay, well, try to get that GPT message from this behavior dictionary, right? Where the name of the function or the name of the behavior is the key in this behavior dictionary. So if you try to get it and you get something, then okay, we know that we have the right behavior, and then we can actually call it. Oh, I think you actually need to pass message.get location, message.get unit. Oh shit, this is going to be annoying. Because the dude, this like kind of like dictionary parsing that OpenAI is doing is just so gross. Are you drinking mate? Yes, this is yerba mate out of a SpaceX cup that's quite old now, but very good. Yeah, the complete in between is kind of annoying sometimes, I agree. All right, this is kind of fucking us up. So you see here, the problem is that this message, right, sometimes it's going to be a different dictionary depending on whether or not the function call is recognized, right? If the function call is not recognized, this message is going to be a dictionary that contains the word content or the key content. If it is a function call, now it's going to have specific fields that are named according to the quarks of this exact function. Okay, so I've changed my mind. I don't want to do this GPT text anymore. I don't want to overload this GPT text function. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take this GPT text function and I'm going to make a new one and I'm going to call it GPT function. Rather than trying to jam all this behavior into this, we're going to make a new one here and we're going to call it GPT function, which is a terrible name, to be honest. Which means we can get rid of this. Let's get rid of all this crap that we added here. Don't need any of that. Don't need any of this. Don't need any of that. Don't need any of this. Don't need this. All right, so now we have our normal GPT text function. We've actually moved it into this GPT function, so we can actually take the model and just put it by default here, right? So it's going to be this one. We don't actually need any of this. We don't need stop tokens. We don't need temperature or any of that. All it needs is just the functions. We don't even need the system. Basically just needs that. And then it's also going to need a the function dict. Let's call it function dict. This is going to be a dictionary. Let's say string any, just so we can be a little bit more flexible here. Okay, we don't need any of this crap here anymore. Actually, maybe we do need the prompt. Yeah, let's actually do it this way though, just because I feel like that's easier. So we'll leave the prompt variable in here. So let's do prompt, but rather than prompt being kind of this more complicated type that we had up here, this union of string and list of dict of string. Let's just only make it a string. So the prompt for this is just going to be a string. So you can see Copilot giving us that correctly. We're going to have to come here and replace this with the prompt. We don't need any of this. Functions is this, which gets passed in. Model is that, which gets passed in. If message.get function call equals none. If that's not the case, no function call detected, return none. Okay. Actually, we don't even need this else statement, right? Because at the end of this, we're going to have a return, so you can actually do this. Let's go down into our code here. And here, rather than saying GPT text, we're going to call, or no, it's not that one. It's this one here, GPT function. And we're passing it the prompt, we're passing it the model, we're passing it the functions, but now we also need to pass the function dict. And this is just going to be our behavior dictionary that we have on here, up here, this dictionary of strings and then behaviors. I don't think we even need this anymore, you know? But okay, so we're passing it the function dict with the behaviors. We're getting the, we can basically take this here, say function. Ooh. Why don't we call it callable? Then let's be explicit about this. We'll say if callable is not none. Await callable. Running behavior, behavior.name. I don't think we need this. Actually, should we return the behavior? All right, let's go back up here. I'm basically thinking about where do we want to actually put this logic, right? Right here we have our functions dict. Message.get function call, the function name. Here's where we would actually say function call detected. Looking for function name. Then we say if function dict.get function name is none. So else, here you would say this is here, and then here we say log dot warning. Function name not found. Here you would basically do a similar kind of thing. Let's also change this to a warning. No function call detected in GPT response. All right, so if you do get a function call back from GPT and the name of that function is inside your function dict, then you can actually call it, which is good. You're going to get the function. I don't have any comments at the moment, but typing this away for the algorithm. We appreciate it, man. We appreciate the engagement. It doesn't have to be related to this code, by the way. I feel like with these streams, I'm trying to go more for kind of a code and chill kind of vibe. So feel free to ask questions that are potentially unrelated, you know? Totally fine. So the thing is that this is not going to be a function. This is going to be a behavior, right? Behavior equals the behavior, right? The way that we defined this data type, it's going to have a name, a function, description, and parameters. So we want to make a partially completed. So basically, func behavior.func. This is going to be the callable, right? This is of type callable. It doesn't know, you see how this is white? The reason that's white is because the function dict here, it shouldn't just be string any, it should be string behavior. And then the reason this is red is because behavior is defined to be low. So we need to take our behavior class here and bring it up to the top here. So let's put it after these time and log, so right here. All right, so now that it's up above this code, you can see how it's now all good. Function dict is a dictionary that maps a behavior to a specific key. We try to, let's change this to F2. Let's do behavior dict, or behaviors, let's call it that. Function call, function name from the function call detected, behaviors.get, calling behavior. Function name, I don't like that we're kind of like playing with the names function and behavior. Kind of feels a little confusing, but why don't we actually use this pattern that we had before, behavior walrus operator, so we can get rid of this line here. And then we need to functools partial. So what is functools.partial? So we're going to have to import this, import wraps, and also import partial. Ooh, partial. So what partial does, which is built into Python, is it creates a callable from a callable, right? So we have this callable object right now, which is the behavior function, but we want to fill in all the arguments that we're receiving from GPT, right? So all this crap here, right? Message.get location, message.get unit. And in this example code that OpenAI provided, the problem here is that this is hard-coded, right? This is like very specific to the actual get current weather. We want to be able to do this, but in a generic way, right? So we need to basically, this function call, maybe we look and say any key in function call that is not called name. So let's do this. For key value in message function call dot items, if key equals name, continue, right? So we don't care about the name of the function. That's not one that we want to do. Can we do this? Can we keep reassigning the callable? I feel like that's not a good pattern, but then we do this. And look at what Copilot wants us to do. It wants us to unpack a one dictionary. So that's not what you want. You just want key equals value, like that, and then return callable. And if we're going to return a callable like this, we want to make sure that here we return a callable, or actually a union of none and callable if we want to be super fancy, right? Because sometimes this function is going to return none, as in here. Just put a dict there, a little type there so that this dot get gets yellow, you know. Message function call dot items. This is what I don't like about these nested dictionaries, is that Python doesn't actually know that these are nested dictionaries, you know. So like, it's like, what do you mean dot items? I don't know what message dot function call is. It could be anything. It could be an object. It could be a string. It could be a fucking integer. So like, that's the problem. So that's why this color of this items here is white. It's because it doesn't actually know what the type of this is. If we really wanted to fix this, we would basically say message. Let's call it func info dict equals message function call, and then call this name behavior name. Let's do this just so F2, and then call it behavior name. And here we call it dot get name none. Let's replace this here. This should be a string. I'm just going crazy with all the types here. Try to get the name. If the name isn't there, then error out, warning, and return none. If the name is there, you say we're calling the behavior. Why don't we actually do... Yeah, that's fine. Call the behavior up here. This is no longer this. We can now use our func info. And you see how now this dot items is now yellow because it's successfully inferred this type. And that's pretty much it. All right, let's do that. Let's save. Let's go back down into where we actually call this. So we can actually do this same pattern here, this walrus pattern that we've been calling, right? Get rid of this. If callable, then await callable. And the callable is going to get the message, the channel ID, the database, default LLM, the user, the temperature, the max tokens. These are all fine. But we now also have whatever extra quargs the GPT API gave us. So actually, what is the string of a callable? One second, let's test this out. Python import functools lambda x, let's say functools dot partial. What kind of, actually, why don't we just ask GPT? How can I print out the name of a callable object in Python? Zoom this in so you guys can see. How can I print out the name of a callable object that is returned from functools.partial? I think it's just string. Creates a new function that calls an original function with some of the arguments already filled in. Okay, agreed. It returns a partial object which is callable. To print out the name of the original partial, you can access the func attribute. Okay. So you should just be able to say, there's the partial, print partial dot func dot name. Okay, so it's this. So exit out of that. Running behavior, and we're going to say callable dot func dot name. See, the problem here is that you can't put a type here. That's kind of annoying, right? All right, so if you don't get this, that means that GPT function is returning none. So actually, the better way of doing this is I feel like GPT function should return a object, and then we should check whether that object is a string or, and then if it's a string, then we could just print the string. Right? I don't know, maybe we just don't need any of that. Let's get rid of that. All right. I think it's time to test this out, guys. Let's open up a Discord. Don't switch. Let's move this here. Come here. Into our bot debug channel. Come here. We're gonna hit save. We're gonna hit Control-Shift-1. That's gonna run this. Paperbot Discord client. Mutable default dict is not allowed. Use default factory. What's going on here? Oh. We left the up here. This should have been this. This is the data class, and we don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore, but I kind of want to keep it here, so I'm going to leave it like this, and I'm going to comment it out just so I can always go back and see what it looks like. Let's run it. Missing one required positional argument parameters. Okay. So you see here when we were creating these behaviors, we now need parameters. So the problem is that this is going to kind of blow things up because now we're going to have too many things. So let's do this. Description. Then here we're going to have the parameters. And let's just have an empty dictionary for all of these. Let's actually be explicit here. We'll say description, we'll say func, and we'll say name. Okay, so we kind of exploded this a little bit. You know, now it's a lot more lines of code, but it should be cleaner. All right, so now it's getting run. Paperbot has entered the chat. Let's put some breakpoints here where we're interested. So on message, let's put a breakpoint right here. Let's go to GPT function. And let's put a breakpoint here, and then also a breakpoint here. All right, so now that we have these breakpoints, let's come over here. Actually I do remember this. I think the last thing we did for this last week is we basically made it so that every like 3 seconds it like gives you a random joke. So let's change this to 1,000 seconds, just so we don't have to deal with that. Coming here though, let's say at Paperbot, want to chat with me. All right, so if callable, we're going into that. So let's step into, right here, you see this step into. We're going to step into that. Now, actually, we don't need the wrapper, so actually let's not do that. And we got an error anyway, so let's see what this error is. Invalid request. Invalid schema for function chat. Schema must be a JSON schema of type object got type none. So where exactly is this failing? It's line 687, line 624, line 153. None of these are actually our file though. So you see here how the errors here are in some random OpenAI. We want the first right here, line 222. So we can hit control and click on that, and that'll be the exact line that failed. So this is where it failed. Let's put a breakpoint right there. Save, Control Shift 8. And whenever I'm giving you guys these shortcuts, you're not going to have those shortcuts. So what you can do is if you Control Shift P, yeah, Control Shift P, that shortcut should work. And then search for shortcuts, and then open keyboard shortcuts, and then here type debug, and then this is the ones that matter, right? So here you can see the ones that I keep using. Debug, start debugging, I have it to Control Shift 1. Debug restart, Control Shift 9. So those are the shortcuts that I use the most, and I have them all on my mouse. I might have shown you guys this yesterday or last time, but you see I have one of these gaming mice, so I can very easily hit 1 and it automatically debugs the file that I have open, right? So I'm all about the shortcuts. All right, let's rerun this. We have a breakpoint now here where it actually failed before. Paperbot has entered the chat. Let's do @paperbot want to chat with me. All right, we're here. Going to the next one. Now we're here. So we're inside the GPT function. Our prompt is want to chat with me with the name here. The model is that's correct. The functions is a list of functions that have name, description, and parameters. And the function call is just a single string that says audio. Okay, so I mean, that seems right. So it's not like we were passing anything weird there. So it's going to error out here again, right? Because we haven't changed anything. And let's actually read the error a little bit closer. Schema must be a JSON of type object got type none. Okay, so I think what it doesn't like is that if we actually open up our example again, you see here how the parameters has a type here, and I think what this type is it's the return object, right? So you see how this get current weather here returns this basically this dictionary object. So I think you need this here. Okay, so let's go into here, and for each of these we're going to put that in there, right? This type object. Let's kill it. Let's rerun it. Paperbot has entered the chat. @paperbot want to chat with me. Okay, we're there. We're there. Now we're here. More errors. All right, what do we got? What's the error here? Invalid request error. Received message. Invalid schema for function chat. Schema missing properties. Wow. Okay, so it's very picky. It's a very picky. It needs all of these. I think it needs properties, which should be empty, and it needs a required, which should also be empty. So let's go ahead and do that. Where are our behaviors? Yeah, so here. So really, here, actually, you know what we can do? We can probably ask GPT to make this for us. Type object. What were the other things? Properties. Should be empty dict. And required should be an empty list. This is just not good, guys. Like, I do not like this. This is just, the problem with this is that it's great because you can pass in arbitrary dictionaries, right? So if they ever change this in the future, they don't need to worry about changing these parameters because they can always just pass in whatever the new format that they need is. But the problem with this is that now you're kind of, the ground underneath you is constantly shifting because they might change what these parameters, or these keys, the different keys that are required, the keys that aren't required, and so on. And that type of stuff can lead to a huge headache. So let's do this, and let's ask GPT to write this for us in a cleaner way. New chat. I have a Python data class that with let me move this over here so you guys can see, with a parameters property that I would like a good default for. Can you write this code so I don't have to create this parameters dict every time? Let's pass it this. Say chat behavior equals, and then we'll pass it the behavior class here. Oh, fuck. All right, wait up, stop generating. All right, edit, come here, do that. So I'm giving it the data class definition, and then I'm giving it one example of this, and I basically wanted to create a default for this parameter dict that has these along with the right types, right? So saving myself a little bit of time here, hopefully. All right. So you see here, this is pretty gross as well, but it created a function called default parameters, which returns this dictionary. And then it uses that function as the default factory for this field. But the benefit of that is that then whenever we define a behavior, we no longer need to pass in this stuff, right? So is that better? I don't really know. Maybe. Let's do this. Default behavior parameters. Let's go down here. Let's copy this. Let's put this here. And default behavior parameters should be here. And I think we need to import data class field. Yeah. So up here, import data class, import field as well. Okay, we're going to leave this here just because I like having the thing there so we can see it. This is still fine, but then over here where we kind of very annoyingly defined all these parameters, we can actually just delete this. right? We don't need that anymore. So let's go here, multi-cursor, boom, 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 and just delete all of these. All right, Control-Shift-1 to rerun it, and then let's move this to the side. Paperbot has entered the chat. At Paperbot, chat with me. Callable, callable, response, response. Boom, all right, we got it, nice, okay. So what did the OpenAI chat completion reply? It replied with this giant garble of dictionary stuff, which I guess is pretty standard. Then we get the message part of that specifically. So one more step over. If message.get function call, there should be a function call in there. There is, okay. Now we have funcinfo. So funcinfo is the dictionary that we're going to be pulling the key and the args out. And this is... Okay, so you see here how underscore retrieve params. It's even grosser than I thought, right? So you have the name, which is chat, but then you have this thing called arguments, which is an empty dictionary. So the problem is that the way that we're doing this, you see how basically we're going to say for all keys and values, if key equals name, continue. We also need to add in here if key equals arguments, continue. All right, so we need to skip these two, but then anything else that's in there, that's going to be an actual argument to this behavior function, so we're going to actually create the callable there. Okay, so let's go, let's go, let's go. We're just going to kind of step through this, make sure we don't run into any issues here. Okay, now it's the end of that. Calling that. Running behavior, callable.func.name. Is this still kosher? Yep, it's chat. That's fine. It's going to send that to the channel. Running behavior chat. Perfect. That works fine. Get the message, get the channel, pass those things. And there you go. Hello, I'm Paperbot. Nice. You know, look at that. I don't know how long that took us. That took us an hour, I guess. So maybe we're a little bit slow, but we've successfully integrated the new way of function calling that was released by OpenAI into our project. So previously we were doing it our way, but now we're doing it the ChatGPT way. So let's go ahead and save. Let's close out of this crap. Let's see, we don't need any of that. We don't need any of this. And I think the rest of this is fine. So let's do Control Save. Let's go here. Let's do format the document. So that'll clean it up. And then let's also do sort imports. And let's use iSort to organize them. Then let's do Control Shift G to open up these two things. And let's, I don't think we actually even need this, to be honest. Let's actually delete this. This functions.py. Delete. Okay, so all we want to do is just commit the changes to this run, and we're going to say OpenAI Functions API. Commit and sync the changes. All right, nice. Okay, so now that we have done that, let's see. I put some other to-dos in here last night. Return priority queue, user voting, run bot, return priority queue, user voting. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to do here is basically I guess maybe we should do this part here. Send the response back to the model to summarize. You see how here, not only do they have this model here, the 613, where it tells you it's going to return that the information required to call that function, but then they also have another model, 613, where if you send it this dictionary here that has the role, name, and content, completions. Dude, their API is getting really, really gross, really, really quick. Like, look at this. You're passing in to this messages right here. You're passing in a list of dictionaries that have very specific keywords. And these dictionaries are all very kind of hardcore. You have, this is like a string to string, a string to a callable, a string to a string. Like, this is very gross. But hey, you know what? All code is gross, and it only matters if it works. List papers, add paper, author info. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to do is they use ChatGPT to implement this API. Yeah, maybe. That's one thing I think about all the time, is that like a lot of these code bases are really gross. Like these Python code bases created by startups that accumulate over time, like as soon as, like, when you have one person creating the Python code base, right, it kind of looks a little gross, but it's fine, it works. You have the MVP, and then you hire a couple more people, they start adding more stuff to it. You hire a couple more people, they start adding more stuff to it. The code base expands over a couple years, and then once you get to that like 5-year point and you've had hundreds of people pushing code into it, it's like the code base is basically unreadable. It's just this giant tangle of mess. And I used to like kind of stay up awake at night being like, dude, what are we going to do? Like these, every single one of these tools and code bases just gets grosser and grosser every day. And I think what I realize is that it actually doesn't matter, because we're going to get to a point in time where no human is ever reading that code base. It's just basically LLMs contributing code to a repo that's primarily written by LLMs anyway. So, and LLMs don't care about complexity, right? You can have extremely poor formatting and weird quargs and weird calls and weird patterns that are not good, and it doesn't matter. Like does code readability matter in a world where everything is an LLM? I guess that's really the TLDR, is maybe code readability is irrelevant. Okay, so I'm getting distracted. In our TinyDB object, right, so we had this little tiny database that is basically a CSV file. And I added this user submitted date and user, and I also added this votes, right? So one thing that I wanted to do is user voting, right? So I want to add a behavior. So I have author info, share sources, list papers, add paper. I want to say vote for paper. So let's do this. Let's say behavior. What are we creating? So first of all, thanks for joining. So we are still kind of working on this little Discord Python paper bot, which we're calling it, which just kind of like organizes archive papers for you. But it's not, the point of the project is not necessarily this project. The point of the project is to just get familiar with what using LLMs is like. And what we did, or since we started, is we basically used this new function calling pattern that OpenAI released just yesterday, where basically what we used to have a bunch of code that we wrote that chose a behavior from a list of behaviors and then called that behavior. And OpenAI has now basically integrated that directly into their API. And it's a little bit grosser than what we did, you know. Now you have to provide this like very specific dictionary with parameters and properties and stuff like that. You have to use a different model and call this different model. But hey, you know, they kind of wrote the API, they make the rules. So now we basically spent the first time of this, or the first part of the stream, adapting our code such that it uses that pattern that they've designed. So now what we're going to do though is we're going to add a new behavior, and we're going to call it vote for paper. Func vote for paper description. User votes for a paper. Will you providing us with the resources that you use on the project? Yeah, this project is all open source and available. If you just go to my GitHub, Hupo on GitHub, it's this one. It's Hupo Paperbot. So all the code is there if you want to use it. It's not like a really hardcore thing though. Like, I mean, it's literally just one Python file called run.py. So yeah, you can use it if you want. This is more like a hangout. Like, I'm more just trying to kind of provide unstructured time where I'm just kind of doing some stuff in the background here, and you guys can ask more questions. Because I think the problem with the paper streams is that it's like very, you know, where we have a goal, we have a focus, we want to get this paper read, but, you know, I'd love to chat with you guys. So let's do a vote for paper function. Let's go up here into our actual behavior functions where we got GPT, paper embedding, add paper, list papers. Okay, so let's basically copy this, and we're going to use it as the boilerplate for our vote for paper function. Vote for paper. Embeds.append db.list papers and listing papers. Okay, so that's not how do we want this? Let's kind of like pseudo code it out. So like user message, right, contains paper ID, contains potentially multiple paper IDs. We want to search the database for the paper IDs. Then if the paper IDs increment the vote count, and I think actually the way that we want to do the vote count is we actually want to make this a list of user IDs. Yeah, depending on the number of users, this is going to be a different solution, but like I don't want people to be able to basically multiple vote. So I think what we have to do is we have to have multiple fields here. We're going to have one that's actually vote count. Vote count. This is going to be the actual integer, which is 0, and then we're going to have a votes, which is going to basically be a comma separated list of users, right? So then basically whenever someone says, hey, I want to vote for this paper, it'll go and it'll increment this vote count, but then it'll also add the user to this list, and it'll actually check this list to see if the user isn't there, right? So Where's the tinydb, save paper, add paper, get paper? Get paper is on ID. Okay, so we need to extract the ID from the paper. How do we extract the ID from the paper? We need to call the paper.getShortID. In order to get the paper.shortID, though, we need to get the paper object. So we first need to do this. So for paper in find papers, ID paper get short ID if paper db. So it's actually, this is the code that we want. So in the vote for paper, let's paste this in there. So we're searching the message content for papers. If we find the paper, this find paper function is a archive, or not a archive, a regex. So you can see here we're searching for archive.org, and then we're basically extracting the numbers at the end of an archive paper, which are the ID, right? So we find these paper objects. This paper object should be a archive paper object. It has a title. You get the ID. You get all the papers with that ID. The paper was already posted. That's not actually what we want to send here. So what we actually want to do is found the paper. This, we don't need to actually print that out. So why don't we do this? Found the paper. And let's do the actual ID of the paper. Just to realize with the new embeddings pricing, you can probably index whole 500-page OCR books for semantic search for less than 1 cent. Is that correct? Yeah, I think they did change the pricing. So if we actually go here, like we're reducing the cost to 1,000 per 1K tokens. So what does that even mean? Let's say how many tokens in the average ML paper? What do you think the answer to this is? How many tokens are there in the average ML paper on archive? Let's ask this of GPT-4, and let's also ask Bard. Did this even do anything? No, it didn't, right? Using this price, using the price below, what is the cost of embedding the entire paper? Let's actually see if, because I think Bard at this point has like built-in tool former functionality for math. So like if you give it something that's math, secretly behind the curtain, it's actually using kind of a tool former type pattern where it actually uses like a explicit calculation. So it's not using the LLM for calculation. So about 20 cents is what it's saying here. Let's see if GPT agrees. Okay, so GPT is giving us a kind of like a chain of thought answer here where it's like talking about, okay, each paper has 6 to 15 pages. Each one of those is 500 words per page. Blah, blah, blah. 6,000 to 15,000 tokens. Let's do this. So Bard is saying 20 cents per paper to embed the whole paper. And ChatGPT is saying about 1 cent, less than 1 cent. Yeah, so you see here the mistake was that the price that we actually gave is per 1,000 tokens. So you actually, here, look at this. This is Bard making a mistake. You see, this is 19,000 tokens. So really what you want is 19,000 divided by 1,000 times this price, you see? But Bard thinks that this is the price per token. So if that's the price per token, then you get 19 cents, which is actually incorrect. GPT actually gave us the right answer here because it divided the price per token by 1,000 and then multiplied this number times 15,000. Draft 2, get S correct. Yeah, okay. So back to here. Silly mistake. Bard still fucking up, you know? All right, so if a user says they want to vote for the paper, and we found the paper, next thing we need to do is we want to get this paper and we want to get the number of votes that are already there in the paper. So inside our TinyDB class, why don't we add a function called vote for paper, right? Get paper, list paper. Yeah, let's make a function here called vote for paper. Self paper archive.result, and also user, and this is going to be a string. Okay. So actually, you know what we can do? Polars data frame self.df has a column ID which should match the paper.id. Paper.getShortID. And okay, the reason I'm typing these comments is because I'm going to actually copy paste this into ChatGPT and then get it to write this for us, right? So check to see if the paper is in the data frame. Then if it is, check to see if the column user votes. What did we call it? Did we call it user votes? We called it votes. Votes. A comma separated list of users contains the user. If it does, return a message that user has already voted. If it does not, append the user to the list of users in the votes column and increment the vote count column by 1. If it is not, okay, and let's do this. Let's copy this entire thing here. It's all just a bunch of comments, and let's see if we can get GPT or Bard to give us a good little answer here. GPT-4, can you write this Python function for me? I implement the code suggested in the comments. Here is the function with the comments. We're going to copy that, send it, and let's also send it to Bard. Reset the chat here, send it here as well. So actually, one thing that I don't know, and maybe you guys can, if you guys also code, you can let me know, is I tend to use this pattern here where I use the triple tilde here and then put code in, right? And this is what you, if you wanted to put code inside like a markdown file, so like for example in our README, like when you put code, you use this triple tilde pattern inside a markdown file. But I don't know if this is actually good. Like, you know, like, would it work better or worse if I didn't have these, right? If I remove these, does it still work the same, or does it work differently, or is it work better, or does it work worse? You know, that's something I haven't necessarily tested. And actually, maybe rather than asking you guys, why don't I just test it myself? So let's do this. Let's do the same exact thing, but I'm going to remove the triple tildes here. Okay, so let's see what it did. Check if the paper is in the data frame. If paper gets short ID not in self.df.id, return paper's not. I don't know if you can do not in like this. If user in self.df.votes, also you cannot do this because this is going to be a string. You're going to need to separate this out. So already this is not looking good because I don't know if this works and I don't know if this works. Votes.append, user ignore index true. This is also wrong because this is not going to be a list. Increment vote count. Okay, so this is kind of bogus. I don't like this answer at all. There's multiple mistakes here. Let's look at this. Yeah, look at this. Holy shit, it does matter. Okay, so you see here I had the these triple things here, and it actually gave us kind of a shitty answer. Look at this. I give it the same thing, but without those triple things in the front and the back, and now look at it. I think this is the correct way of this is weird, but at least it's different. It's different in the right way as well, so this is kind of interesting. This is also wrong because it has to be at a specific index. But it is interesting that I got different behavior. This is fucking weird. Okay. Polars, paper get ID. Yeah, this is actually what you want to be doing. So this is what, here it's saying it as a mask, but really it should be one, right? There should be only a single paper that has that. Filter, paper row, apply. This is correct as well. You see how here it's actually splitting the string with commas. Okay, so this is actually much better. So let's start from this one. Put that there. Control Z, let's go like this, paste. So indent this correctly. Okay. And now we don't actually need to put this logic here. We can actually do this. Self.db.vote for paper, or sorry, it's not self dot, it's just db. Vote for paper. This is going to return a string message And we just want that message to be sent like this. Oh yeah, we have to create this like weird embeds. Crap. Actually, no, we don't. Never mind. That doesn't matter. Let's just do this. Obviously, without that. So more like this. Okay. Description, paper dict, summary, listing papers. Okay. Okay, well, I guess we actually need to pass in the paper object here. So we need to pass in paper, and we also need to pass in message.author.name. But we're going to need to put a breakpoint here. So let's actually go Control-Shift-1. Paperbot has entered the chat at Paperbot. I want to vote for paper. We're going to need to find some random ass paper here. Let's do this one. Okay, callable. It's trying to figure out what function to use. Trying to figure out what function to use. We don't need these breakpoints. Let's get rid of these breakpoints. The behavior it's getting. Let's get rid of these. Okay, now we're inside vote for paper. We have our paper object. We have the user as well, so this is my name because I'm the one who requested this. The paper ID, that should work fine, right? Boom. Now we have the ID. Paper mask, so self.df ID equals paper ID. So you see here how it's a 12 because there's 12 papers in our dictionary. So actually if we do paper mask, I think all of them should be 0. Yeah, it should be false, and then there should be 1 true. So there you go. So there's no assumption here that that the column ID is unique, right? This is basically making the assumption that you could have multiple rows inside this data frame that have the same paper ID, but if that's the case, really, we would want to basically throw an error. But okay, we'll deal with that. Paper row equals self.df filter paper mask. Okay, so what does paper row look like now? Let's say, come down here, say paper row. Okay, so there we go. There's our paper. Paper row votes. Right now it's just an integer 64 with a single 0 there. So right here, user. So you see the problem here is that we initialize this votes column with user, but user is default none. So whenever you initialize a data frame with a none, it seems to automatically choose an int64, but that's not what we want. We want it to be a string. So let's make the default an empty string here. So we use this pattern here. So if this is none, which is the case, it'll basically initialize it as an empty string, and then this won't be a integer. I think this is going to throw an error because as soon as it tries to do this dot split, it'll actually error out. But let's see. Yeah, there you go. Int object has no attribute dot split, so we kind of knew that that was going to happen. Okay, let's put breakpoint here. We already got rid of some of the other breakpoints that we had, and let's go ahead and rerun this. At Paperbot, there we go. I want to vote for this paper. We don't need this breakpoint anymore. Paper.get short ID, step over, step over, step over, step over. All right, so now paper row, specifically paper row votes. This should hopefully be a string now. No, it's still an int64. What about paper row user? Oop. Yeah, so the problem is that this is when the paper was added, so unfortunately I think we have to delete our database, guys. Or actually we can edit our database. Holy shit. Can we actually do this? Let's get rid of these logs. Yeah, we can actually do this. Because our database is literally just a fucking CSV file, we should be able to just edit this. This is going to be a little bit hairy, but votes right here. Which is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh my god, this might just be impossible to fucking edit. But you see here, here's the user. Here's the date. I think if we control F this date. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So we know that the votes column always happens after this user submitted date column. So if we want to be super tricky, and this is like some fucking super hacky shit that I'm doing here, I'm going to search for this string here. You know, we're going to do Control H. We're going to say, I want to replace that with this. Right? So rather than the column being 0, the column is now going to be empty string. Right? And the only reason this works is because I know that this entire CSV column, all of the columns in this CSV file were added by me on this one date. So if I do this, replace all, save, we just literally live edited our database, which is fucking crazy. And now let's run this again. Paperbot has entered the chat. At Paperbot. I want to vote for that paper. Get short ID, that's fine. User votes. Let's see what paper row votes is now. Paper row votes is now a string. That's good. That's what we want. Okay. Check to see if the list of contains the user. So if we do this, what exactly is this doing? Dot first. Yeah, series object has no attribute first. That's kind of what we could have expected. Can I get like series.val? Like, can I do paper row votes.value or something like that? Paper row votes.val. What properties does this have? Like this. Paper row vote 0. Val, apply, apps, any archive, info, bot, connection. Can I just try to typecast this into a string? Like, what if I do this? No. Did not like that. polars series change value. Pandas replace equivalent in Python polars. Yeah, that kind of seems like what I want, right? Is there an element way to recode? There is a map dict. df with column. When the PL column A equals from 0, then... Dude, what the fuck? You can just like chain these things like that? Dude, this is fucking gross. How does it end up doing it over here? Self.df with columns. Let's look at the actual series object in the polars documentation here. Okay, so the polars object, this series, what does it have? Methods. So this is the different methods. I want some kind of value method, right? Something like that. Can I just set it? IABS, append, any, apply. Value. Value. Mode. Convert this series into a Python list. That's what I want right there. To list. Okay, and the reason it's a series is because here we created a mask. So it still thinks that this code is still assuming that there might be more than one paper row, which is a little bit annoying, but that's fine. So we're going to say paper row votes, which is going to return a series, and we're going to turn that into a list with the .toList. All right, now we have a list of what could be multiple rows. All right, so we're going to do this. We're going to say .toList, and then we're going to say 0. So it's basically only going to give us the first one. All right, so if we somehow magically have multiple papers with the same ID, it'll give us only the first one. .split. There you go. And then actually what you want to do is like this. Empty separator. Okay, so this is the actual user votes, and then we say if user votes is none, user votes equals user ID, or I guess just user. This is going to be a string. If there is stuff there, then split using a comma. Check to see if the user is in there. If it is in there, then return and say, hey, you're already here. We're not going to increment the votes. If that's not the case, then do this. If not, then append the user. So user votes is going to equal blank dot join user votes plus user. That's probably fine. I don't think you can need to do it this way. I think you can do it in a more primitive way. So you can do basically this. This is more primitive, but I kind of like it. Self.df, and then you actually have to update the data frame. So now we want P column votes when paper mask, then new votes, otherwise column votes. Let's get rid of this. Let's say update the vote columns of the new list of users. It still wants to do this little pattern here. Oh my god, this thing is gross though. There's no way this works. And then increment the vote count by 1 also probably doesn't work. Okay, let's put a breakpoint here and then we'll come back. Put a breakpoint. All right, save, kill, get rid of that, get rid of that, save, run, Control-Shift-1, come back here, copy this, copy, paste. Actually, I have to say @paperbot. Received message. I think you have to, you can't edit the message to include this. You have to do that. Okay. So our user votes. Wow, that is fucking gross. That's not at all what we want. I think maybe the pattern they had before, maybe we just continue to do that. This dot join user votes plus user kill it, restart it. All right. What is user votes now? That's much cleaner. I don't like how there's this weird comma there though. I think we just got to do this. You see, because we were checking to see if it's none, but that's not actually what we want. We want to basically do the length is 0. So if you have a length 1 string, then don't do it, basically. All right, so now what is user votes? Now user votes is Hupo, that's fine. One thing I'm noticing here is you see how it's using my name, but my name has a period in it. So if someone had a name with a comma in it, that would completely destroy this. So I think what we're going to do is instead of user, we need to basically change this to, you see how here the add paper gets this, but what we really want is the author object, right? So I think here in the vote for paper, we have message.author.name. I think there's a message.author.id probably. Yeah, here you go, .id. That's what we want. Okay. And that also means that when we add the paper, add paper here, we also don't want to say user here. Actually, what we want is get rid of this user and just do message.author.id. And let's go here to where we actually call this add paper function, which I think is here, where we give it the user. Yeah, get rid of this. All right, simplifying our code a little bit by little bit. Okay, let's rerun this. I want to vote for this paper. Wait up, I need to say @paperbot. I want to vote for this paper. And boom, there we go. All right, so now user votes. That looks correct. It's just basically this giant integer that represents an ID for a user. That's fine. Why don't we try to copy paste this, because I feel like this is just not going to work at all. So let's copy paste this, get the error, and then try to figure out what to do based on that error. So let's go here to our debug console. Let's put that in there. Okay, data frame object has no attribute with column. So I think this is probably a pandas function that does not have an equivalent in polars. So we're not going to be able to use that. So let's try to do this. Let's copy this. Let's go into Bard. Even though Bard has given us the wrong answer before, we're going to give it an opportunity here to redeem itself. We're going to ask it to complete this. Can you write the remaining code in the Python function below? Okay. Check to see if the votes, blah, blah, blah. Update the votes column with the new list of users, paper row equals user votes, df.update paper row. Can you do this? I don't know if you can do this. Let's see. That seems suspiciously easy. So let's see if we can actually do this. Paper row votes equals user votes. Yeah, okay. Data frame object does not support series assignment by index. Use dataframe.withColumns. Oh shit, so wait, maybe all that's wrong here is you just need to say with columns like that? Add columns to this data frame. Add columns will replace existing columns with the same name. df.withColumns, pl.call_a. So maybe you can just do this with columns. Replace, so this is a casting here. What if I want to like set it to a value? With columns when paper mask, then user votes, otherwise PL column votes. Is this? Seems like a very gross operation, but expression object has no attribute when. So this is not correct. Can you use the dot from columns function call? Let's see what it gives us here. This is garbage. All it did was just tell me about what the dot from columns does. Oh, sorry, it's dot with columns. I'm sorry, Bard. I'm sorry. I kind of set you up for failure here. We got to do this with columns. So it still has this, which is incorrect, but at least it gave us this. I think this one should actually work fine. What is paper row? What is the type of this? Paper row. Type. Is this a data frame? Yeah, it's a data frame. Self-deoff filter paper mask. So there's no dot when. I think it's dot where maybe. PL call votes dot where paper mask. Set user votes. There's no set. Let's do this. Let's come up here. Let's edit the original reset. We're going to edit the original prompt, and we're basically going to give it everything except this. And actually, I'm just literally going to paste this, see if that works. See if it completes it for us. Dot update user votes. It's also incorrect, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there's no dot update. Like, I don't know what it keeps trying to figure out here. There is no dot update function. How do I replace the values? Assign? Is this another fake function that it's telling me exists? Dot assign? Yeah, that doesn't exist either. Come on. Oh my god, dude, what is going on with this polars? I think we might have to just do an entirely different pattern anyways. We might have to basically have a mapping of function and then map that function. Filter, group by, aggregate, that's not what we want. We want finish, filter, group by, collect. API, Python, data frame, manipulation and selection, maybe more attributes. Nope, that's not what we want. We want manipulation, filter item, interpolate item, Maybe this. Return the data frame as a scalar. Is there a set? Select, set, sorted, tail, top K, 2 series, 2 dummies, top K, update. Update the values with the non-null values and other. Ooh, okay, this is more what we want. So you have a data frame, then you have a new data frame, and then you update the old data frame with the new data frame. Okay, I think this actually might be the pattern we're looking. This is the pattern we've been looking for. So here when you create the filter, remember this is actually a pl.dataframe. Let's actually give this a little type here. So this is basically a new data frame. Match. Let's call it matches df. So then user votes matches df votes. We can get rid of this. That's not what we want. Update the votes column in matches df. Okay, that's fine. And also here, you see how we said dot 0. So actually what we should do here is basically dot head. And really only have one. We need to get rid of the n. Let's do head of 1. So this will return just basically one row. Let's make sure that's the case. All right, so there you go. It's only one row. Let's copy this entire line here. Matches df, which should be a data frame, returns one row. Then we should be able to say matches df of votes, and that should just be one thing. It's still a series object, so we still need to basically get the 0th index of that. Matches df with column votes equals user votes. Let's see if that actually works. Let's say user votes equals, say, one user ID and then another user ID. Just fake user IDs there. And then let's see if the with columns actually does something here. Column not found. Oh my god, dude. Polars is so gross. Update with columns pl call votes. The fact that you literally cannot replace a fucking thing is so annoying. Can I literally just not fucking index that 0th thing there, right? Like, can I just literally say, okay, matches df at 0 matches df 0, like indexing this, where is it? User votes, column not found, user votes. What's it called? Just votes. Matches df votes of that equals series of user votes. Does not support series assignment by index. Oh my god, series assignment by index. Assign value to column in Polar's data frame at specific index. This should be a really simple thing. Yeah, like this is what I want to do. Perfect. Another lost soul looking for this exact thing. Immutable. You can't update a single cell value like in pandas. Well, that's a bunch of dog shit. One method that didn't cover is this. Oh my god, this is so much grosser. Yeah, so this is actually the weird pattern that Copilot was trying to tell us. This weird combination of like when, then, otherwise, alias. And here they have the dot update, but the dot update is also not. When was this written? It might just be April 5th. So maybe they changed the pollers. Setting multiple values. Okay, so this is what we want. Let's see if this even works here. pl.when pl.call matches df. It's called votes equals 1. Then user votes. Otherwise, pl.call votes. Alias votes. And then you basically put this into self.matchesDF with columns like this. Can I get rid of this? Polars expression object. How do I use a polars expression object to update? Seems like I should just be able to feed this into a dot with columns. Matches df dot with columns. And then let's paste our weird conditional thing here. Cannot compare UTF-8 with numeric data. What do we do this? pl.call where paper mask. Update. Some live debugging for you guys, dude. How exciting. Yeah, so this is more the map thing, which might actually end up being what we need to do. I think this might actually be the better way to do it. Or, here's the even better solution. If you can't get the code to work, you change the requirements. So let's get rid of all this crap here. Matches just finds the paper mask, and then all we do is just update the vote count +1. Let's do this here. df.select pcall a map. I think you could just do df apply, df sum, pl concat, df sum. No, we want where is it? Where is it? ¿Dónde está? This? pl call a times 2. Self df pl call dot vote count. PL call where paper mask dot apply lambda x plus equals 1. Okay, I feel like this should work fine. Series object has no attribute pi expression. What do we just do this? Self dot matches df with columns pl vote count dot apply lambda x plus 1. Column not found, vote count. What? I feel like there should totally be a matches df vote count. Matches df vote count. What is matches df? Votes. Oh yeah, we don't have the vote count column, unfortunately. So could we actually do this? Matches df votes dot apply lambda x user votes. Dude, that would be so hacky, but it might actually even work. Let's see if that works. Lambda x. Oh shit, that actually works. Okay, wait up. We found a way to do this. Okay. So the way that we're going to do this is hacky, and it's hacky because we know for a fact that matches df only has one row. So basically we're going to apply a function to this row, to this data frame. We're going to basically apply this mapping function. But because we know that this matches df only has a single column, right, called votes, all we have to do is just basically say whatever the fuck is in that votes column, do this. Set it equal to user votes, like that. And we can even be more fancy and do that. I feel like this should actually even work. Yeah, that works. And now if we do matches df of user votes fuck, it's actually called just votes. There you go. All right, so we figured out how to do it. It's not very clean. Let's do this. Update the votes count column with the new number of votes. Vote equals length of user votes. And self.df with column PL call votes counts. Okay, perfect. This should be like this. Matches df, and then we want to do df.update with our new data frame. And let's make sure that this actually works. Got an unexpected keyword argument in place. Okay, so whatever this is, it's not actually there. Alrighty, look at that. Perfect, perfect. All right, can we actually clean this up? So another thing we could do here is we could make this lambda function, we could pull it out here into a actual function that we define here, and then we could throw an error if the user has already voted for the paper, and then try and catch that error. And if that error happens, then it basically just gets rid of that. I don't know if that's actually cleaner than what we have now, though. I think it's just as gross. It's just gross in a different way. Here, do this. Plus equals. Make sure that this stays a list. Because you see here, the problem is that this is a string, but then as soon as you come here, it becomes a list. So changing the data type like that is generally not a good idea. So let's actually make two different variables here. We're going to call this one votes, and this is going to be a list of strings. And that's user votes dot list. So we're going to say votes string. Actually, let's call it raw. So now we can say votes raw dot split. This we don't actually need to do that. If length of user votes equals 0, if length of votes raw is 0, right? So if we have an empty string in there, then user vote or votes. Let's put this up here. Let's make this none. Or actually empty list. If it's greater than 0, then now we set it to votes raw dot split. Okay, so the default is basically empty list. We no longer need this. Now we can basically take this and pull it out. Get rid of that. I'm just kind of cleaning up the code. The functionality is going to be the same, but it should be a little bit more readable after this. So if the user is in the votes, let's actually delete that. I don't like these fucking... Let's get rid of these comments. Okay, so you get the votes. If the length of the votes raw is 0, then or greater than 0, then split it. So now you have a list of strings. You check to see if the user is in that list of strings. If it is in that list of strings, then you return and break out. If it does not appear in the list of strings, then update the votes column with here, and then here we're going to say that. Yep, that's correct. And let's call it votes plus user. I think we can actually do this. So let's move this here and let's just say join votes, right? But then here we'll actually do the addition here. So we'll say votes plus equals user. And actually better than that, let's do this dot append. I think that's the more Pythonic way to do it. Okay, so we apply that. That's correct. Then we need to update the votes count column. And that's also going to be matches df, and then we're going to overwrite this matches df data frame votes count, and this time it's going to be the length of the votes. All right, so we got rid of a couple different intermediate things that we had here, and then we update our data frame with matches df, and then we should probably save. So I think we have a explicit self.save function. There we go. We need to basically do that. Self.save. Nice. All right. I think that's it, guys. I think this is the vote for paper. One thing that we will have to do here, though, is that in our CSV file, right, unfortunately, we don't have a column called vote counts, right? We only have votes, so we're going to do more hacky here. What we're going to do is we're going to add vote counts. We're going to do another weird migration, pseudo migration, if you want to count it that way. So we're going to add this column here, but now this CSV file is completely fucked, right? It's not the right amount of rows and everything, so we need to make sure that right here, this, we're going to search for that, and we're going to replace it with this. So we're basically manually adding the vote count and setting it equal to 0. All right, let's run it. All right, Paperbot. Paperbot has entered the chat. How you doing, Paperbot? I want to vote for paper. All right, so we get to this point. Everything looking good so far. What is votes? Votes so far is a list of, should be strings. This looks like an integer, but I think that's fine. Hit the next. Uh-oh, looks like it errored out. Sequence item 0, expected string instance integer found. Okay, so it didn't like the fact that this message.author ID here, this is a integer, but whenever we're actually passing it into this vote for paper here, right, we're calling it user first of all, but this needs to be a string, so we need to be explicit about that. And the way that we're going to do that is say user equals user dot string of user. And here votes raw dot split equals votes. And I think maybe we need to do this. Is there like a mapping function in dot split? Sep max split. No, okay, we can do this with a list comprehension. It's going to be a little bit grosser, but we can say string of blank for blank in votes raw dot split. So this is a little gross, but it'll manually typecast all the things in this dot split into strings. Okay. It's running. Let's try this again. Boom, we're here. All right, what is votes now? You see how now it's a string. So we're good to go. What is user? User also a string. All right, so now we hit next. That works. Hit next. Oh, error. All right, what did we run into? Column not found, votes count. Okay, so it didn't find the votes count column, which we did add. It was just added manually. We called it vote count. And what do we call it here? Votes and then vote counts. Okay, so I think it's just we literally vote counts and then votes and then votes count. What do we want? Do we want votes underscore count? I feel like that's the better way to do it. Votes underscore count. Votes underscore count. Votes underscore count. Okay, so we're using the same name everywhere. That's what we had wrong here. And let's rerun it. Okay, Paperbot has entered the chat. At Paperbot, I want to vote for this paper. Come here. Boom, boom, boom. Nice. That's it. We did it, guys. Oh, what the fuck? Oh no, what happened? Error, ignoring, exception, blah, blah, blah. HTTP cannot send empty message. Okay, so you see here, this vote for paper did not return a string. So we need to come here and here where we update. You see how here we're always returning a string? So let's return a string here. So let's say return and F user has voted for paper. Perfect. Okay, error out. And let's save this. Let's commit this. We'll say vote for paper behavior. We're going to commit. And there's no point in having a vote for paper behavior if we don't actually have a way to list or sort our little database by papers. So we're going to basically make a variant of this list papers. I think we actually literally already have this, sort by. So list papers, sort by. Where are we calling this list papers? So you see here, we kind of want to pass it sort by. So let's do this. Let's say list papers and sort by. And we don't want to have just vote counts hard-coded here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look in our quargs for sort by. So you see how here this behavior, we're just passing it this quargs dictionary here, which can contain all kinds of random shit. So we're going to search for this quargs, which could contain all kinds of shit, for something called sort by. If that sort by is there, it'll set it to this. If not, this will just get set to none, and that's fine. But now, the more interesting thing is that this behavior, the list papers behavior, we need to have the sort by votes. So list paper here. I think when we define the behavior here, list papers description, we're going to need parameters. Name, sort by a field. This is going to be a string, and the default is votes. Okay, so this is the maybe a problem here, is that here you see the problem is that the name of the quarg is important, right? Because there's a difference between votes and vote counts in our database. But as a user, right, I'm not going to know that. So we basically need to make this function very robust to that. So one way that we're going to do this is that we're going to go here into this list papers. And when we say sort by, we're going to say if sort by in votes vote counts, voting, you know. Then we're going to hard code it. So no matter what you say, if you mention anything involving votes, it's going to make sure to use the right column, right? So it'll sort by the votes count. If sort by in df columns, sort df columns, columns does not exist. Okay, this should all be fine. Let's test this out. Paperbot has entered the chat. I want to vote for this paper. Let's see if we can get the basic behavior. Make sure we didn't break this. Invalid request. Name, description, type, string, default is not of type object. All right, so what's happening here is that OpenAI is being very picky about the exact format of this. So let's make sure here we can go back to our little example that we left here commented out. So the properties each need to be at this level. They need to have a type, a description, and I guess they need to be required. Let's see, is that what we have in our thing? Parameters. Yeah, it should actually be more like this. It's going to be sort by, and then that's going to be a description, type, default, votes. So like that. Let's make sure. Let's double check again. So it should be the name of the parameter, then type, and then description. Is that what we have? We have the name of the parameter. We don't know if the order matters, but usually in Python, the order in the dictionary doesn't matter. There's another explicit data type called an ordered dictionary, but we don't know what OpenAI is using, so let's just make sure the order is the same. Okay, let's run that. Paperbot has entered the chat at Paperbot. Can you list the papers sorted by votes? Oh my god, it still doesn't like it. All right, sort by type is not of type object. Dude, what the fuck is this crap here? Properties. Maybe you need to... Yeah, I think it might actually literally need to be called get behavior parameters. Dude, this is so gross. So here, it actually needs to be like this. Type object, and then within this properties dictionary, this is where you would do it. Sort by type string and then here's where you would do description, sort by field. Is this correct? Have we sufficiently guessed the magical can you list the papers sorted by votes? Running behavior list papers. Embeds has a maximum of 10 elements. Okay, Okay, so in our list papers function here, where is it? List papers. That all seemed to work fine. But the problem here is there's 12 total papers, and then whenever you actually call this list papers behavior, we're creating these Discord embed objects, and then we need to make sure that there's only up to 10 of these. So we need to do this. Embeds equals embeds, and then we'll say only up to 10. So we're only going to choose the 10. Actually, a cleaner way of doing this would actually be here. So I in paperdict and enumerate list papers, and if I is greater than or equal to 10, break. So basically that saves us having to embed a bunch of things that end up not being used. So as soon as you get to this 10, we should probably have this as a quarg. So actually, why don't we do this? Why don't we do quargs.get, and then let's add an additional quarg here. And we're going to call it max papers, and we're going to set the default of that to 10. And let's go ahead and make a extra parameter here. So we have a sort by parameter. Let's also make a maybe num papers or something like that. This is going to be an integer. This is number of papers to list, and let's say the default for this, we're going to set it equal to 3, the top 3 papers. And because we ended up using a different name, let's make sure that we're using the right thing here. So down here, yeah, we called it num papers. Quarg.get num papers 10. Okay, that's fine. Run it. Paperbot has entered the chat. And let's say at Paperbot, can you list the top 4 papers sorted by votes? That's definitely not 10 or 4. This is like 10 papers. I think we kind of want like the number of the votes, right? Like I want to be able to know how many votes this has. So why don't we do that? Why don't we come here in the description, summarize paper. So here, paper dict summary. Let's do an F string here. And we're going to say votes. We're going to say num votes. So this paper dict here should have a field called vote count, right? So let's say paper dict votes count. Let's add a new line and another new line, and then continue on with this F string and do that. Okay, so that's that, but now why did we not get the top 4 there? So let's put a breakpoint here in our list papers function. Put a breakpoint there, and let's see if we're actually even getting this quarg, right? If we're actually passing those in at all. And let's also, whenever we actually call the GPT function, let's go right here, and we're going to put a breakpoint here, and let's check to see if GPT function is actually correctly even finding these quarks that we gave it. So let's do that. All right, so it listed all these papers. Let's copy this same command here at paperbot. Can you list the top 4 papers? All right, so hopefully func_info should have retrieve papers, name, list paper, arguments, sort by, votes, num papers 4. Wow, that's fucking gross. So this is returning a dictionary as a string? Oh my god. Dude, what? Func_info arguments. How do I turn this? Like, do I literally need to do that? That's fucking disgusting. That's... Is there no way to get these arguments already in dictionary format? Let's ask GPT. I think there should be a quick, easy way to do this, but just want to make sure. Can you turn this string into a dictionary? Can you provide a Python expression that converts? Just wait until one of our arguments is a dictionary. That would literally explode this. JSON.loads. Okay, so it has to use JSON. Okay. Import JSON. Come down here. Where were we doing this? Nope, we're doing it up here. Palm text, GPT function. For key value in JSON.loads of func_info arguments. And we no longer need this, and we no longer need this. So it's like that. Actually, let's pull this out. Let's say dict equals, we're going to call this argdict. This is going to be a dictionary. Equals JSON.loads, and then we're just going to get rid of that. We don't need that for loop anymore. We're just going to unpack this arg dictionary. And in fact, we don't even need to create this temporary variable. Let's do this. Put that there, and we can also shorten this and put this here. And we don't even need this anymore. Look at this. Great simplification of our code. Let's put a breakpoint there. Let's run it. At paperbot, can you list the top 4 papers sorted by votes? Boom, triggers here. JSON.loads funcs arguments. If we do this, this should return a dictionary. Let's make sure that that's correct. Yep, that's the dictionary. Behavior.func should be a callable. Yep, that's a callable. And let's keep going then. Output, terminal. List papers takes 3 positional arguments, but 4 were given. It takes 3 positional arguments, but 4 were given. So over here, we gave it 1, 2, 3. And then we gave it more callable arguments. So I think the problem is up here. Where is it? GPT function here. Yeah, so we need to do this. Star. That's what we forgot. This will unpack this dictionary object. We don't need this breakpoint anymore. Let's keep going. DB list papers. Let's make sure that this quargs here. If we actually print this out, what do we get? Right? So we're getting the correct things. We're getting sort by, and we're getting num papers. So that's correct. Let's keep going. Keep going. Get rid of this breakpoint. Keep going. And it should be good. There you go. All right. So it looks like we just got a bunch of papers with votes equals 0. So I think we need to vote for a paper. So let's go ahead and vote for a paper. Let's copy the link and let's say @paperbot vote for paper this one. Paper with ID is not in the database. That's not good because this is that literally should be there. What about this one? Copy link. We'll deal with that later. Vote for paper that. Okay, get rid of this breakpoint. Let it run. Okay, so user has voted for paper. That's fine. That's what I wanted. Okay, but now if we say list the papers, list the top 4 papers, or list the top 2 papers. @paperbot, can you list the top 2 papers sorted by votes? Okay, so it's not there, right? And this is making me think that the sorting is, we need to basically say ascending or whatever it is. Sort, and then I think here, descending equals true. So we wanted to sort with the highest number first. Let's kill that. Let's run it. And now @paperbot, give me the top 2 papers sorted by votes. That's no good. Let's inspect our database. All right, so control save. Let's go into paper CSV. Here's the description. Here is the user. All this crap is the embedding of the abstract. Here's the date. Here we go. We need to basically search for this. I'm looking to see one of these should have a number 1 right there. See, none of them have that, so it doesn't look like we're actually incrementing the vote count column. So just to test, let's go over here and let's make this one have 4 votes. And then let's make this one have 2 votes. So if we save that, and now we restart it, we should at least be able to get those 2. At Paperbot. There you go. Look at that. Pretty cool. All right, what are we at in terms of time here? 2:52. I think we're almost coming to the end here. All right, let's commit this. Save. Control-Shift-G. List papers, sorting. Max, yeah, sorting num papers. Completely unreadable GitHub commit message, but who the fuck cares, right? So cool, that's it. I do have to go, but you know, it's been nice hanging out. What do we do today? Maybe a little summary. What we did is we basically used the function calling API. We refactored our stuff to use this instead. We also added a couple columns to our database for listing or for voting, and basically you can now vote on specific papers and it'll make sure that you can't vote twice. We kind of wrestled with pollers because pollers has immutable data frames, which is interesting. It's unlike pandas, which has mutable data frames, and that's probably telling you about why pollers is way faster than pandas, right? That immutability is the reason why it has speed. So we have to kind of do a little bit of weird hacking here with this with columns applying and then like a lambda function that just like literally overwrites what's already there. But yeah, and then we added a behavior, we added some arguments to the list paper function, which allows you to define the number of papers you want to list and whether or not you want to sort by a specific thing. So, I don't know, I guess you could even sort by name and other things, right? But yeah, that's what we did. Nice little hangout and code. If you guys want to mess with this code, feel free to copy, paste it, remix it, whatever you want to do with it. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for hanging out. Hope some of that was useful. Thanks, Matheus, Glenn, Erland, everybody else who commented and made comments. And see you guys tomorrow and Friday. I still haven't picked papers for tomorrow and Friday, but maybe we do a paper tomorrow and then a little bit more coding Friday, or maybe we do 2 papers, or I don't know. We'll figure it out. But thanks, everybody. Thank you, Erland. You're always so nice. You always comment and say thanks for the session, so I appreciate it.